everybody. My name is Tony Cardenas, and this is the Indy Real Estate Market Weekly Podcast. It's our first podcast for 2023. I'm sitting here with Shelly Walters with EXP and Kyle Morris with FC Tucker, and we're getting ready to talk about our stats for the beginning of the year. A little slow, but we got some good information for you guys. So, Shelly, what I'd like to do is start it off before we get to the stats. Let's talk about some contractual things that we're seeing in the market today, or we're hearing about in the market. Could we start off with that with you today?
Sure. All right, so the thing that was happening, I've been told a couple times in the past week, one of the things I was hearing was that there's a section in the purchase agreement that states how the house is going to be used if they're purchasing it, and there is a section that just literally states whether or not you want to use this property as a rental or not. And HOAs definitely say whether or not you can use a rental at that property. So just one of the things, have you ever run into that, Kyle?
I have run into it. I've also run into it where, somebody's going to run a business out of it, right, on the side, or if they're going to rent it. It says single family residence or other, I think is what it actually says,
Yeah.
and then you can fill in what the other is.
And what you're talking about, does that also include when somebody wants to rent a home for like 3 days, what's that called?
Airbnb,
Airbnb,
absolutely,
right.
absolutely. Yeah.
So that's included too, like you said, running a
Yeah.
business out,
100%.
like in our neighborhood, you cannot run a salon out of it, you cannot Airbnb it.
Well, you just got to know what you're doing, right? Because if you were to try to buy that single family residence and you're not going to do that, you're out of contract, right? And then if somebody finds out when they're looking at the covenants and the restrictions that they're at a cap or it's not allowed, and somebody tries to get out of the contract, well, they're already in default with the contract of what they said the original purchase agreement was, the intention of the property, right? So then it's like, then earnest money comes into play and these other things. So you just got to know what you're doing. I mean, every single box on there matters.
But here's the question, Shelly, we talked about this last week off the show. Why are other agents, not following up or looking through the contract for their buyers on these type of things?
Well,
explain this to me.
Kyle just said a great word. Every single box on the purchase agreement matters. And I've always been something, we mark down everything in our sheets when we go to pending of each timeline that matters. One of them is getting your insurance commitment letter. And people always wonder why that matters. And we'll call them, it's due in 10 days. And on the 10th day, we're like, you have it. And they're like, oh yeah, we're working on that. I mean, that's a whole nother issue. If your insurance company is going to come back and tell you one thing, the clue report shows 5 fires in the house, you want to know that as a buyer. And they also want to know that all of a sudden it's a $1,500 premium instead of $800, and the lender now can't qualify you because those payments just changed immensely. So every box matters, but when you're talking about rentals, the HOA documents definitely say that. And in the purchase agreement, you have 5 days, or whatever they wrote the number in, to look at the covenants and restrictions and say if you agree or not. But as a listing agent, Kyle and I would be looking at the second place where the purchase agreement states how they plan on using that property.
Right.
If they check single family housing, we're assuming they aren't wanting to rent this. But even I go further.
Or run a business out of it.
Right, and I go further in my listing and say this is not able to be rented, because you just don't want to have these things rear their ugly head after you've gone under contract.
Right. I mean, I know somebody who's dealing with one where they got under contract and come to find out a little bit before closing that it's a divorce situation and both parties didn't sign the listing agreement. And now lawyers are involved saying hey, none of the marital assets can be, it wasn't even a valid listing contract.
Well, the agent that was involved in that, come on, why are they an agent?
Well, okay, there's a couple of trains of thoughts on this, right? Or modes of thought.
I don't know about that, but let's hear it.
So I've made mistakes, and that's how I became a good agent, for the record. I don't expect people to be perfect. I expect for you to improve your craft. I expect for you to learn and educate yourself and talk to your managing brokers and all of these things and talk to other agents to be the best agent that you can. It's kind of like why we do the podcast to a certain extent, right? It's to educate others. So,
but I can tell you,
I understand that errors are going to be made.
Right.
Some errors are just avoidable. That's the other piece too.
That's
right?
a great thing.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you've never done that error.
No.
That's big.
Well,
that's pretty
there's ways to check all that, but
there's also remedies to that for the record as well.
Yeah, and the other thing about that too is having that conversation with the seller and understanding the situation that they are in. If they say that they're in a divorce situation,
Pump the brakes.
and
Yeah.
ask a lot of very hard to ask questions.
Right.
You start to get very personal with these people. I mean, literally my question in a divorce situation is, are you guys literally, getting along? Can I expect one of you is going to be very difficult in this transaction? There are people that try very hard to make sure it doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
All that kind of stuff. And you just need to know what you're dealing with. And it's nothing against them. That's a horrible situation to be going through.
Sure.
But we just need to get a little bit more personable about it and talk to them and see what's going on. And that gets to something else that I was talking about is another agent was talking about, there's still people out there in forbearance. And if you're in forbearance,
Oh, yes.
if you're in forbearance, you really need to understand what that means for you and look at it. If you've been in forbearance for a couple of years, I highly recommend you get a hold of your lender and get your actual payoff. Nothing online, what you're looking at is a payoff, because I will tell you.
Online payoffs don't mean anything, but that also goes, what you're talking about, the title company. The title company really needs to find out if there's other liens on it. And sometimes this forbearance stuff has not been documented correctly. So you're right, Shelley. They need to find out all of the payoffs. If there's legal fees behind it, the forbearance doesn't always show up on the mortgage lender's payoff. There could be another, how much, Shelley?
Well, in this particular situation, the seller, and going back to that, having a title company bring this information up, this isn't a conversation in regards to, it's just basically anybody out there in a forbearance, they're not gonna have title work in front of them. Just call
Right,
your
no,
lender.
I'm talking about after they've done the search and got the payoffs.
Right, so when a title company, if you're actually in a purchase agreement, in this particular instance, the buyer thought, or the seller thought they had $56,000 payoff. In reality, they had a forbearance and their payoff was $98,000.
Sure.
When that comes to you a couple days before closing, when you don't understand that that's
It's a
happening,
little shocking, I would have to
it's
say, for
shocking
the
and it
person.
could kill the
They can
deal.
absolutely kill the deal.
Because you may not have enough equity and you may owe at the
Yeah,
closing.
you could have come to closing with $10, $15, $20,000, and or you're gonna get $30,000 less.
Well, in that particular instance, so I just wanted to just say, if people out, have a forbearance right now, get a hold of your lender and see exactly where you are and maybe think about starting to get picked back up on that.
Well, I can give you this piece of advice. I've done a lot of forbearance mortgages in the past, paying them off. And the biggest thing that you gotta do is when you're in that deep, it doesn't hurt to get a real estate attorney. I did not say an attorney, I said a real estate attorney, because they are two different professions there. Real estate attorneys are completely different than your regular general practice attorney. Okay, and if you have to spend an extra $500, $600, $700, $800 or $1,000 to have these documents reviewed by an attorney, I'm telling you, it's probably a well worth investment.
Yeah, we did one. I did one. I don't know, 2.5, 3 years ago. Similar situation, and they had gotten some kind of mortgage assistance. I don't even know, like 7 years ago. And they had never had anybody reach out to them about a payment or anything.
Oh, yeah.
They had just forgotten. And then when we went to do the payoff, all of a sudden there's just an additional $25,000 that's coming out of proceeds, and we found out a week before closing.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's a shocker.
they almost were gonna have to walk away from the deal. We did end up getting it closed, but those kind of things, like discuss things you haven't heard about something in a while, doesn't mean it actually went away.
Yeah, and it doesn't go away. And the thing,
It does not.
unfortunately, in the
No.
forbearance is, since you're not paying any principal toward it, that interest is growing rapidly. So there is the huge difference in your payoff, is because that interest was going higher and higher because you're not paying down principal anymore.
Exactly right.
I'd be curious, I mean, this is like obviously just a sidebar, does that get pulled into a separate pool that garners its own interest separately, or if it's still just as a bulk?
Well, that's a big white box, but I'm telling you, you got
We'd probably
fees, you got
be-
legal fees, you got all kinds of stuff that adds up to that second number, like this individual had to deal with, and it's a shocking number. But anyway, I wanted to touch base on those two issues right there, because it could help another agent go through this. And especially when you're buying, as a buyer, and you're thinking about renting your house, or you're gonna do something special with it as a business, you really need to have your real estate agent look into this and say, hey, you're gonna be okay after we close. I mean,
Being a
you do.
landlord's not for everybody. I'm a landlord, I love it, but it's a whole different animal, for sure.
That's right. And a lot of newer agents don't know these things, but it means that they could reach out to somebody on our team right here. You know, we got yourself, Justin, Shelley, you got myself, and they can contact the show. And maybe we'll even get them on the show to talk about some of this inexperience that agents have, because it's only going to make them stronger, like you said earlier.
Well, I want to just throw a real tag into an upcoming show. We are going to be talking to Mayor Fadness of Fishers in regards to their rentals.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he's going to be on the show, and I think that's going to be a really good one for people.
Yeah, and then we got, we're working with Carmel Mayor Jim Brainerd to come on the show for talking about the real estate here in Carmel. We got to nail him down because we had to cancel on him towards the end of the year. But hey, anyway, let's go over to the stats real quick, and then I'll jump on the rates at the end. We're 10 minutes into the show. I kind of want to cap the show right around 18 minutes, 19 minutes. So what do we got in Carmel here in the last 7 days?
So I did the last 7 days. We know we went over the holiday, and there were new listings, 13. 3 of those did pin in the past 7 days, and in the past 7 days, the average days on market was 38 median. Then the
38 what?
Median 38. I'm not doing, we've been talking about this in the past, not doing average, because some of these huge outliers of 200, 300 days screw it up. So
Right.
median's a better number, so there's 38 days on market.
Right.
The past 7 days, the past 30 day sales, the average is 35. So we are kind of staying on par right now. It looks like that is kind of staying in the average of 30 to 40 days on market in Carmel.
Exactly.
Total active in Carmel is 122. 45 of those are new builds. So only 125 are, 77 are
Right, 77.
resales. And then the average price point was anywhere from 125. That property in Carmel is down to the studs. So
Yeah.
everybody's like gonna go, where's that one?
Exactly.
And then 5.9. Westfield, 15 houses hit the market, 5 pended. There were 4 new ones of those 5 that pended, so only 1 was a resale. There's 158 total active in Westfield. 103 of those are new builds, which 55 are only resales. So again, we're still seeing Westfield very heavy on new builds. The price point's anywhere from 159 to 7.2. And in the past 30 days, 67 new builds sold, 47 resales. The average sale, median days on market was 24. The average days on market was 57. That's why I'm saying there's a huge difference between median and average.
Right.
So in Zionsville, 4 houses hit the market, 1 pended. Currently there's 38, anywhere between 296 and 7.5. In the past 30 days, past 30 days, 30 sold. Only 3 in Zionsville was a new build. And one of the things I see that here is average days on market were 37, median 16. Is Zionsville doesn't really have a lot of new houses hitting the market very often. So seeing that 4 hit the market in the past 7 days and 30 have sold, I really see that
30 have
Zionsville
sold in what amount of time?
in past 30 days.
30 houses sold in Zionsville in 30 days?
So I think that, and there's only 38 left that are currently
Gotcha.
active. So what I'm seeing is that potentially we're gonna really start to see inventory in Zionsville disappear if it's being sucked up that fast.
Right, it'll be interesting too because, they're gonna start building out Lebanon really bad, especially with the new Eli Lilly going up over
Absolutely.
there. Which is gonna bring a ton of jobs, and they're right next to each other, so.
Yeah,
so
Whitestown,
Zionsville gonna get
Sheridan.
Whitesville, yeah.
Mhm.
It'll be weird, will
Yeah, I
Zionsville
was
start
on-
annexing things?
I was on the team with Bank of America that we did all of the construction for Beezer Homes in Whitestown. And I'm gonna tell you something, some of those neighborhoods are great, some of them aren't so great. But it's crazy, some of those houses were selling for 145,000, and now some of them are like close to 300 grand. And this is less than 10 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy. We won't see that type of growth for a long time. But, one thing I read yesterday, and they're talking about the recession. What points do we see it in the housing? Well, it seems like our market, and I always go back to what you say, Kyle, our market is kind of getting into the normal market. We're not seeing anything crazy. We're not seeing price drops of $50,000 and $75,000. Okay, of course, the interest rates are right around 6.25 to 6.75%, subject to your credit score and your loan to value. But the bottom line is, they said in the Wall Street Journal and the USA Today, when you start to see a decline in the RV sales, okay, that's always like the walk into part of the recession, okay? And this was just 2 days ago. So the bottom line is, I'm not seeing it down here. Have you guys had anybody that's really concerned about the real estate and talk to you about recession, like giant price drops? Because we're not seeing them.
I feel like those are two different things. So what am I seeing versus what other people are seeing? So
Well, what are you seeing?
I think the market is stabilized. I was talking to another agent about it over the weekend. You know, when I go over my stats, they've been these stats for a while. They've hovered around the same thing. And that was the other thing. So I did a 2-week period. But historically, this is the slowest 2 weeks of the entire year.
Of course.
Historically.
Yeah.
So this is like, if I were to just take this in a vacuum, the worst it gets, outside of something cataclysmic with rates, right? Which is obviously what people are worried about.
What?
Cataclysmic. But I also
Wait,
think,
Word for the week.
Oh, that's our word for the week. Say that one more time.
okay, I'm going to dumb it down. Something bad. Okay, so and that may or may not happen.
Dumb it
They're
down,
going to
I
go
love
up.
you.
They're going to go down.
Right.
You know, I don't think that's going to happen. So like when we're looking at like where's the market, like this is kind of, you know, our slowest time.
Right.
So I think this is stabilized. I think we're fine. I have a couple concerns about it, but it wouldn't be the same type of concerns other people
Right.
have. What do other people think? I think people are starting to feel it's stabilized, but they want to ask me for reassurance
Right.
that it is, because I think there's starting to be enough information.
Yeah, I don't feel a lot of fear in our market at
I don't
all.
either. I
Okay.
mean, I just, over the weekend, we pursued an expired listing, and I got put in the highest and best on an expired listing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
so
I mean, there's still people buying houses, you know, and it was only a 4-month contract, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But
You know, I was looking at
there's
the
still plenty of people.
I was looking at the state of Florida last Thursday and Friday, and there's some certain areas where you have some huge price drops, and then you got some areas that, man, they're sticking right at list price. They're just sticking right at list price, and they're not moving because they're going to sell. And their days on market are a little long, but they're not bad. I mean, they are turning down there. So, you know, I'm looking at other parts of the United States, but man, it's not bad. Anyway, let's go over your stats.
So Fishers, so I did do 2 weeks since we had a week off.
Good.
We had 24 that went on the market in that 2 weeks span. Anywhere from 194 to 845. 19 of them are still active.
So what city is that? Fishers?
That's Fishers. 5 of them pended. Average days on market is 43. But, you know, we've been hovering around 38 to 43. I would expect for it to go a little bit up based on, you know, because this is taking
Gotcha. Absolutely.
basically from Thanksgiving to now, right?
Gotcha.
There's 124 on market. When you go to Noblesville, there were 19 that went on the market between 225 and 725. 12 of them are still active, 7 of them pended. 43 days on market there as well, and 106 total. So that's why when I looked at it, you know, this is kind of the worst that I feel like it's going to be. Is my big concerns when you're like, so what am I actually concerned about? I'm concerned that our inventory has dropped, and I'm really concerned that in 6 months we are at a bottleneck again because permits on new construction has gone down.
Right, and we do
inventory is down.
have. I'm telling you, we're going to have 2 more price hikes, even though we're being
Rate
pretty
hikes.
stable.
Yeah.
For the feds, I mean, they're coming in. All right, we're at 6.5 right now. If you really kind of look at it, the banks are a little bit higher, but you're right. I think we're going to get into a bottleneck. Like we're in the healthy inventory, and what does that do for the inventory prices? It stabilizes them.
Yeah, and then they drop rates. So
That's exactly right. Well, I don't think we're going to see a lot of rate drops this year, but I do think you're right on this. When you see you're not going to see huge discounts.
No.
You're just not going to see them.
Sellers will get more educated, more patient. You just don't need to. Yeah.
Right.
Setting expectations
Yeah.
with those sellers, knowing that
Of
we're
course.
looking at 2 months, potential for it to be on the market. Just calm down, be ready, and we're going into spring. So this is going to, as a normal market, as we keep saying, is we're getting ready to hit. March, April, it's going to be the big months of selling, and so if inventory doesn't pick up, we're going to start to possibly.
Well,
see
here's
this.
the big thing. If you're thinking about selling this March, February, April, whatever the month is that you're thinking about during the spring, you need to get a hold of your agent now and start getting some pre-work done, get your pre-approval done, and then also adjust your pre-approval right when it comes down to making deal time. And there's a lot of things that we can help you do here. So if they want to get a hold of you, Kyle, how would they do it?
So it's Morris Property Group with FC Tucker. Phone number is 317-649-5122.
Okay, now who's your boss at Morris Property Group?
Sadly, me.
Okay, and Shelley, how would they get a hold of you?
You can reach me on my cell phone at 317-201-2601. It's Shelley Walters Realty Group at EXP.
Okay, and Big Fella's not here today,
I know.
AKA Justin Griffith with Keller Williams. I'm gonna get his,
He's got
Yeah.
some big news and a busy January.
I know he does.
I'm excited for him.
right, and we got some big, we're gonna get his stats. I'm gonna put him out on Thursday this week. So I'm gonna try to do it with him over the phone. Okay, everybody, we'll see you next week. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again.